Hey everybody, it's almost finale time. I've been getting all kinds of questions about Viserion, the Night King, so I figured it's time to start talking about Endgame theories for them, because this is not slowing down at all. There are a couple big questions to answer, so we know that this is going into Season 8, the Night King is making it south of the Wall, but what is he going to do with Viserion, aside from just patrol around the army of the dead? They've lost some of their number, but presumably they break south of the Wall, they replenish those, and then some exponentially. So when we're talking about killing the Night King, killing Viserion, you have to sort of clarify what the rules are. Like, what is Viserion now? Is he a white, or is he more like the White Walkers? Because there's a big difference. Viserion would still need his tissue, otherwise he couldn't fly. And whites decompose, unlike the White Walkers, who seemingly age, but maybe at a much slower rate. There's a lot of questions about the way White Walkers age, because Craster's babies get turned, but once he touches them and his magic takes hold, do they just immediately sprout into fully grown White Walkers, or do they age at the same rate that other human beings would? I think the idea is that his magic takes hold of them and they grow at a much accelerated rate, but they still decompose, because there's only a handful of White Walkers that we know of here, but way back during Season 4, there's all of these standing in the background, and Jon has killed a couple himself, Samwell killed one. So let's just assume that for hundreds of years, people have been offering sacrifices like Craster. There have been White Walkers that have grown, died off, and then replenished through new babies that have come along. But I've gotten so many questions about Viserion now. Because he's been turned by the Night King, will he still grow? So a lot of people saw the blue eye, and they just took that to mean that he was like the White Walkers, but whites also have blue eyes. So that's not necessarily a confirmation. Right now, just based on the evidence the show has given us, I'm treating him like a bigger, more complicated version of the white polar bear that we saw earlier in the episode. I think the idea now is that he has all the same abilities that he had before. He breathes fire because if they're going to take down the wall and he's going to help, it's going to have to be fire. People are like, will he breathe frost? The really easy conclusion to make there is that frost isn't going to help bring down a giant ice wall. You're going to need fire. So wouldn't it be cool if he breathed blue fire? And that's just a function of the Night King's magic. But he can ride him like a normal mount. He can send him on patrol so the Night King can just walk around on the ground while Viserion is strafing or doing whatever he wants. He can also use him as a recon tool, so he can see through Viserion's eyes the way that Bran sees through the eyes of the Raven. Now, they haven't completely defined the Night King's powers. All of his abilities flow through the Children of the Forest, so anything that they were capable of doing, the Night King is probably capable of doing a version of that too. But in turning him into a weapon, it sounds like they just imbued him with a bunch of extra abilities on top of that. This nightmare of nature that could raise the dead and control massive armies. He can control all of the whites simultaneously, and like they said, you kill him, you kill everyone else, because he created them all. So this is a really important idea, because the big question is what kind of final battle are we moving towards? Will they actually make it past Winterfell, or is that where the final battle is going to take place, and it'll just be over a couple of episodes? Like, it'll all just happen up there, because if they make it past Winterfell, it'll probably be because they've washed over it like a biblical plague. So think about how heartbreaking it was when the Boltons took Winterfell. If the army of the dead were to take Winterfell, that would almost be too much. But if they don't make it south, then Battle of Gondor style, like your final battle takes place there, even though the Gondor of Game of Thrones is down in King's Landing. It would be a nice way to sort of deflect for the battle for the Iron Throne. Everybody says that it doesn't matter. Well, if the final battle takes place at Winterfell, then it really wouldn't matter. And pretty soon, we're probably going to have all of our important characters up in the north anyway, because they're either going to Winterfell or going to the Wall. So you have this whole idea that there's not going to be anything interesting happening in the South. So it paints a very different picture than what I think people's expectations were when the series first started. Because King's Landing has been the center of everything. Way back in Season 4, we saw the shadow of a dragon flying over it. That was a vision that Bran had had. That might have been a vision of the future with Daenerys flying over King's Landing on Drogon, because we haven't seen her in any of the promos. And I think that's just to maintain some surprise, because when she arrives at this big meeting that they're having, she'll arrive on Dragonback, so there will be a dragon over King's Landing. But in the way that the series sold Ned Stark as the protagonist during Season 1, I also think it's a misdirect with King's Landing and the Iron Throne. Daenerys had all those visions of it in ruins with snow falling on the ground. You could take that as a vision of the future, the Night King bringing Viserion to King's Landing and just destroying everything. But after the fact, as the visions are sort of explained to Daenerys, they're things that might have happened or could have happened had things been different. So I think this isn't meant to be a literal future. I think it's meant to be a combination of futures, like maybe Daenerys with her dragons didn't listen to Tyrion, destroys everything, and then winter eventually comes because they did not come together. So whether he makes it that far south or whether they hold him at Winterfell, they need to kill the Night King and they need to kill Viserion. There was one really big way for killing a dragon, whether he was undead or not, earlier this season. There's the giant scorpion that Bronn took Drogon down with. They'll have to use that, but I think that they'll also have to add some dragon glass or maybe even make a Valyrian steel bolt. The characters haven't learned how to do that yet, but Gendry, Master Blacksmith, could borrow or take somebody's Valyrian sword, melt that down, and turn it into a Valyrian steel bolt. I think it would be a little disingenuous if there wasn't at least a little bit of a big Battle of the Bastards situation where you actually have a big pitched battle, Army of the Dead versus the United Forces of the South. But really, you need to get someone in close to the Night King, so that requires a dragon and someone who's really agile. So a lot of Arya Stark theories flying around, but you could either drop her from one of the other dragons, but if you're unable to bring Viserion down and the Night King remains on his back out of reach, you could try to use one of the dragons to airlift her in and get her close with her dagger, whether or not that'd be effective. We've never actually seen someone fight the Night King in close combat, so you have to imagine that as badass as the White Walkers are, the Night King is an extra level above that. The smarter way would probably be to take Viserion down with a scorpion bolt, then get someone in close to the Night King, because if you killed the Night King while they were flying in the air, per the rules, Viserion would die immediately, and then whoever went in to kill the Night King would just free fall until somebody picked him up. So you guys can let me know in the comments, which method do you prefer? Someone is going to have to kill the Night King. I mean, it will definitely be someone gets in close and ganks him and takes down most of the army that hasn't already been killed by the United Forces of the South. But do you prefer someone do that while they're flying through the air or after they've already killed Viserion using one of the scorpions? But as sort of a tangent to that, people wondering what's going to happen with Rhaegal and Drogon. So you have 2 on 1 now. They'll have to at least attempt some sort of aerial Spitfire battle with all 3 of them. But I really do feel like Drogon and Rhaegal will make it out of this, or at least in time to lay new dragon eggs and fertilize them. Daenerys has been barren for all this time. She believes that she's not going to have any more children. She believes there won't be any more dragons. So I think the big surprise is that she will eventually get pregnant again and have a child. And sort of flowing from that, new dragons will also be born, or at least dragon eggs will be laid. We really don't know how long it takes for them to gestate. That could be multiple lifetimes. So the characters on the show now might be dead before more dragons are born. In per Maester Aemon in the books, we find out the dragons are sort of asexual. They're neither male nor female, so whether or not they choose to do that, it is possible for them to mate. But let me know what's all your Night King Viserion theories in the comments below. But because we've been talking a lot about Daenerys being childless, I'll talk a little bit about the prophecy in my next bonus video, and then obviously my finale video. So all that's coming really soon. The HBO Now giveaway is still going on. All you have to do to enter that, just be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. Congratulations to last week's winner, Chris Whitehead. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. While you wait for everything, you can click here for my finale video, and you can click here for the trailer again. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.